What's that smell? That's vomit, disgust, rotting bodies. Are you burning another Old World Alliance team in the booth again?
What? No, you told me to bring my teams. Here they are. I got my skeletons. I got my Snotling.
Oh my god,
Look at
why
his
are there
little
snotlings and skeletons in the booth?
You told me to bring my teams.
I said bring up your teams. Now my seat looks like a witch threw up on it.
Well, she did. Sorry. The necromancer diet doesn't really, it's not really good for the digestion.
Get them out of here.
Oh, come on. Don't.
Ah!
Okay, fine. Oh, praise Nuffle. Welcome, everyone, and distinguished gun noises, to another episode of BBSPN, a Blood Bowl podcast, where now we're talking about our teams. Because finally, after a long time in the making, we've been able to play several games of the latest edition of Blood Bowl.
And I mean, we were doing that anyway, but more importantly, there's not a new rule supplement.
Yeah. Thanks to the holiness that is time and complacency, there's not a new rule set for us to look at and shake our heads and become very confused. Today, we're just going to do a quick recap of our teams, what we've been using, how we've been using them, and more importantly, why we use them in the first place. I was going to start off first with my latest team, which is the Morsled Meteorites. They're an undead team. And the simple reason, and I've talked about this before, we were talking about teams that new players should play, is because they are, in my opinion, probably the most consistent teams in the league, expanding each positional. Like big guys, your positionals and your linemen are all very consistent, and you know where to put them. There's no mystery behind the undead team. That being said, with the new addition, the amount of bash that has been generated is off the charts, and in my opinion, that has put the undead team in a position where they're kind of not hybrid, but they're like a defensive bashy team, if that makes sense. Like, I don't make a whole lot of plays, and I don't make a whole lot of blocks, but I do try to target my enemy's positionals a lot more. I keep my line back, and I don't normally go for the ball unless it's safe to do so, which is why I usually keep them for like tournaments or bigger events, because this is the team I try to play seriously, because that's kind of the way to play them. I mean, you can play them bashy, but with the popularity of Black Orcs and other teams that kind of just match you in bash, I mean, Chaos Dwarves and Dwarf teams are still very popular from the last two tournaments I've looked at.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's also one of those things of like, undead are really good in this edition.
Yeah.
It's I've definitely heard more veteran players just call this the edition of the undead. Where it's like undead and humans are just super strong, mostly because those two teams didn't have major lineup changes. Like every team got like a nerf in some way. Then humans and undead basically got to keep their tried and true starting rosters, which is really, really fun. Which lineman do you use?
My lineman preference actually goes to I'm not going to give exact numbers, but I usually keep myself biased towards the skeletons.
Yes!
I think that their increased movement and the fact that they have thick skull makes them more of an asset on the field than the zombies. I still like Zambos, especially when I have them on the pitch. They're on the line of scrimmage normally because they have a higher armor. I don't need them to move much, and I just need them to support my mummies if I have my mummies up on the line of scrimmage. With a lot of times, especially if I'm the kicking team, I don't do. I don't like the idea of my mummies being targets because I can rely on them. So I'm going to use them the way I want them to be used.
Yeah, that's kind of what I see a lot of undead players do, and at least in Blood Bowl 2, I saw this a lot on like the Cabal Vision ladder, where you would see these undead teams where they would like just put 3 zombies on the line, and then just be like, okay, everybody else is sitting back because I don't know where I want to dedicate these Strength 5 Mighty Blow players out the gate.
Exactly. And that, again, that's just the consistency of the team. I can rely on those positionals, so it branches out my options for what I can do. And that's the beauty of the undead. Most people focus on the undead because, haha, I can punch you and get more people for my team. But that isn't, in my opinion, the key to the undead team is that they're consistent and fun, and I think that they're also quite easy to paint, save for the mummies. And when it comes to like each positional, like I usually keep at least one of each, especially the ghoul. I like the ghoul, but he just isn't a consistent ball carrier, so I'm at odds of having more than one at any time. Yeah.
Go on.
Because like when I want to make a cage, I just kind of use my lineman and then grab a blitzer to pick up the ball. I normally use my goal for like situations where I need someone to be fast and cover an area, because he's just so easy of a target. He gets knocked over easy. He doesn't have regeneration. I'm afraid of losing him in situations. So he's almost always in the back line, regardless if I'm playing offensively or defensively.
I've taught you well. So one of the reasons why I really like undead. I don't actually play undead. I very rarely play undead, but I really like undead players because there's a lot of personal preference that's subtle on undead. Like most people I talk to swear, I don't know if it's possible in this edition. I haven't done the math. But I know like
Lord knows I haven't.
Last edition it was like I met some people who was like, take the ghouls, like just take 2 ghouls. Those are your ball carriers. That's your SPP. Go nuts. And I'm just like, okay, what about your whites? Like,
yeah.
Like it maybe that's just out of ignorance because I don't know how to, or I don't really like play undead. But it was also really funny because, like I had a game in another league where it was like a 150k or like a 160k ghoul, and I think I either movement busted it or I agility busted it. Might have been an armor bust. I don't remember. It was a stat bust, and my opponent, I think it was Keyframe, actually was just like, well, there goes 2 seasons of development. That player's fired.
Yeah.
And I've definitely berated Keyframe plenty of times for being like, you need to not invest in these ghouls. But I also remember the Sage, when he was talking about undead, he's like, oh, I take 4 ghouls and I just use them as trash. They're 40k, movement 7, dodge. Who the fuck cares what happens to them? It was so funny to see that. It's like everyone's like, these players are precious. Like, these are my process. I mean, they kind of look like that in Blood Bowl 2, honestly.
Yeah.
Smeagol ghoul. And
Smeagol looking ass.
And then Sage is just like, I'm going to treat these like trash.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, I don't like teams that have primary SPP hogs, and
really?
that's what ghouls seem to me. They're an SPP hog, and they're an easy target. And if I lose them, I don't want to lose like all of my investment in SPP to one bad block.
Yeah.
So, like, I want to get SPP from knockdowns, I want to cage up, and I want to play defensively until the bodies start to pile. And I don't get that if I play more ghouls. I don't, at least for the way I play, because I play defensively as hell. You can ask everyone, my turns take forever.
I was about to say, like, if you were playing it as a team where you're kind of running around like you're using a white and you're kind of running around just trying to set up these 2-die blitzes to try and get removals, especially if that white's got like Mighty Blow. I could see like getting a ghoul just because it's a high movement player with dodge that can get there to be the second body for the 2-die. I think that could be a really interesting way to play them. But yeah, overall, I'm not. Every time I see like an undead player just be like, okay, I made my blocks. Ghoul, go get the ball. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
I'm going to ruin this player's career because it doesn't have regen.
Exactly. A lot of people say, Ghoul, the primary benefit of having a Ghoul is the dodge. His movement is all I really care about. He's a body that I can put in places that I can't with my other linemen. And that's the only benefit I really see to him.
Why did I say the Ghoul was 40k? The Ghoul is not 40k. I was looking at the lineman. I'm like,
he's expensive.
I was supposed to say, he's expensive. Never mind.
Yeah. And
which makes Sage treating him like trash all the more funny. But
yeah, and that's why I keep like a 12-man, even sometimes a 13-man team, because I like having spare linemen. And Undead, and the way that Blood Bowl 2020 has gone so far, having spare linemen is really nice.
yeah, I mean, especially because on Undead, because you want to be fouling. Once you get a pitch advantage, you just kind of slowly roll over your opponent.
Yeah. Did you want to go over your one of your teams, or do you want me just to continue the ramble?
Sure. This is pretty chill. So this was a good idea already. I've been playing Old World Alliance.
Boo! You suck! And why is this development?
Because I had already bought them before we made that episode.
So did I.
I really enjoy the positioning game of Blood Bowl. So a funny story about this. I played Norse for the first time in another league, in a Blood Bowl 2 league, and every time I had played against Norse, like CCL ladder or in other leagues, I always just rolled over them. I don't know if it was my team was just better than their team. I don't know if I outplayed them. I don't know if they played poorly, but it was just one of those things of, wow, my opponent, like every time I play against Norse, it's just like, wow, that was like barely even a game. So I just didn't bother with them. But this league has a rule where whenever a player dies, the admins donate 50 cents to charity. So, ooh. And they called it the Summer of Norse, and I think the phrase was "nips out for Nuffle."
That's ridiculous.
It was great. I played a team called Bit Nipply Out in it, and everybody was like named variations of like cold and hard nips. I think the stadium was called the
Brisk.
Glass Cutter Dome.
Oh my god.
It was like brisk, chilly. I had a Yeti named Big Nips. I actually started with the Yeti against my better judgment because on the recommendation of Wales. Big Nips, he died, unfortunately. I was really sad. I made a blitz with him to base at the ball carrier, and I said, try me. I think I said, like, try me in the chat. And my opponent instantly, I think it was against Undead, actually. My opponent instantly makes a block with the white and just kills him outright. It was funny. But...
So how do you play the Old World Alliance? Because that is the key question that I'm
getting
sure.
There.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing that I learned playing Norse is that the position, or like one thing that like was super important for me playing Norse, and the part that I eventually like grew to really love about the Norse was that the positioning game was so important. Like you had to know where your players had to be, because if you made a mistake, you do not have the armor to keep a player on the pitch, and you also like. You're AV7, so it's very much live by the sword, die by the sword. But also, if you make a positioning mistake, that's going to hurt you immediately, and then again in the long run with Norse is what I found. Like you don't have the flexibility to really get out of those spots. And Old World Alliance are much the same way. I think Old World Alliance are actually more so that way, which is part of why I really like them.
Right. How so? Because I'm thinking about like the Norse team. You had like your Blizzards with jump up, so like if they survive a block, they can still get back into position. And then you have still a whole line of blockers, which to me is a significant advantage to any of the Old World Alliance teams, because there's a lot more risk to taking a block with your lineman.
There is, but it means that you have to be playing better. Is the point here, and that it's a team that makes you play harder. It makes you play better to get the result that you want. Which is, another way of saying, or maybe perhaps reiterating that this team's only draw is that it's difficult.
Yeah.
But like one of the things that I found was like the human linemen on that team are so freaking important. The more that I play Old World Alliance, the more I realize that the human linemen on that team are just so important because they have to do so much of the lifting. So it's a really interesting positioning game where like you have to know when to position conservatively versus when you have to try to pivot into bash. It is really unfortunate, I'll be honest. The dwarves still make me sad sometimes because there's nothing worse than having your opponent dodge away from one of your dwarves and then not being able to catch that player because you're movement 4 and their movement 6. It's so bad. The fact that like I played against humans and it was like, oh god, this is so difficult to like even keep like pacing.
Yeah. So when do you pivot to being bash? Do you just wait for bodies to drop, or is there a certain lineup or blitz that you have in mind for?
It depends because every game is different. Generally, the point is that I just kind of know when to pivot. If I think that my opponent is... If my opponent tries to give me space, I won't like totally engage. I'll just do what we call shooting the gap, which is just you don't base yourself up. You're one space away, so your opponent doesn't have a lot of ways to move up the pitch. And they have to get into your face for that turn, which means you get more blocks on the next turn. If I get like a couple removals, I'll just immediately pivot into being aggressive. If my opponent makes it like a bad positioning error that exposes the ball, I'm just gonna gun for it anyway because I don't have much of a choice. But generally, it's one of those things of like you just kind of have to. And I think this is another part of the Old World Alliance where it's definitely a team that was probably designed for people who've been playing for a while, where you just kind of know from experience when you need to pivot. I know on Norse, because like Norse was like another team where I was like really really intrigued on the pivot on like turn 3, turn 4 from playing conservatively to going into my opponent's face. And that was one of those things where it was like, if my opponent tried to give me space on their drive, I just instantly took it. I was like, no. like you're playing scared now. Now I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, you do not play scared against Norse. They will punish you on that front because they're not afraid of one dies, unlike you.
Well, it's that, but also like, I mean, like, and this is a difference between like Norse and Old World Alliance, where Old World Alliance just has more armor across the board. Norse, it's like, okay, you'll make the right play, but you'll still get like 3 players removed, and you're just like, well, oh no. I mean, like, sometimes you just Norse your opponent, right? And sometimes you get AV7.
That's a very good way. That's a very good way of putting it. Sometimes you can just Norse your opponent, where you're rolling 1 dice that are hitting on pals really well, and you're able to get your blitzers into a good position. It's a unique thing that only really happens with Norse.
It's Norse and to an extent Zons. Getting Zonned. The thing is that more people, I think, are familiar with getting Zonned than getting Norsed. Because getting Norsed, I think people confuse it for getting diced. And getting Zonned, it's you know why it's happening. You just keep rolling stumbles. And then they kick your ass. But the way that I've kind of been playing them is I've kind of settled mostly on a roster. Again, every player on the team is extremely important, so you have to use them all optimally. If you're not, you're gonna have a bad time. Like, when you make a mistake with Old World Alliance, you feel it. But I think that's part of the fun to me. I mean, maybe I'm just a masochist, but the general things that I've, like, the kind of, like, differences that I've been leaning on are, like, when there are actual choices to be made, because there's very few choices, I think, that you can make in your Old World Alliance team construction. Take the human thrower and the catcher over the dwarf runner. Again, the runner's bad. I will reiterate that the runner is more expensive, worse at passing, slower, and did I mention, the loner? Like...
Yeah. Let's also talk about that the dwarf runner sucks. The dwarf runner really sucks. It is kind of like something where I almost feel like it's a power move if you take the dwarf runner, because I need to know why you took it. I'm going to focus on that dwarf runner because why the hell would you take that stunty boy?
So I get it from one perspective, and that is, and I'll get into this in a minute, if you go for like the super greedy route where you take one reroll in basically every positional you can.
One reroll with Overworld Alliance. That's a new level of greed. In my
you can do it, and you get max fan factor, or like max dedicated fans. So you can basically just like try to power move your way into like building, getting your second reroll and getting an apothecary and stuff. Do I recommend this? No. Did somebody, when I said what's a good Old World Alliance roster when I was first looking at this team, and somebody immediately said that? Yes. Somebody did just instantly like go for the greed. I was like, no.
Go for the greed.
And like so part of the reason with why you take the thrower catcher is that because you lack a lot of oomph, like you get a big guy, and that's basically it. You're gonna brawler, and you've got two players with brawler, and you've got two players with block, because you're taking both of those dwarf linemen and both blitzers that you can get. You can take the Slayer. I get why people want that. I think that's a matter of preference. I don't remember what the math is on getting this guy into the roster, because I never take the Slayer, personally. But I really should have done that math beforehand. But I think you can get to 11 players and 2 rerolls with the Slayer. It's just, I mean, you can, but I don't remember if it's bad or not, is what I'm getting at here. But one of the big things why you want that thrower and that catcher is that your team moves up the pitch really slow. Like, it might be turn 4 or 5 before you actually make a move on this pitch, just to start trying to score. If it's turn 3, you're either doing it too early, or you've got or something happened and you are in a really good position. Is kind of how I view this.
Now, when you make a play for the end zone, do you like, are you waiting for like near turn 6 to start making the move, and is that move like a passing play, or is there a way that you're shoving your line so that you can make just a running to score?
I think you want to shove the line, and I think that it needs to be turn 4 or 5. If you haven't made a move on the pitch and it's turn 5, you're not scoring. Your team is too slow.
Really?
You can't cage. You're too slow for that. You need those dwarves on the line backing up your big guy. And you need them to be able, and you need your dwarves to bog down players, even if they're bad at it, because they have brawler armbar.
They sure do.
But generally, like, passing is really bad on the Old World Alliance, but the catcher is the only player with agi access. So if you want a marker type player, and I really like markers. I really like that kind, or at least I liked it in the past. I haven't really gotten to the point in a league where I can develop a catcher into that. But like, he's already got dodge, so just go like, so if you go block tackle, like, this guy's movement 8. I mean, the only thing he's missing now is sidestep. I mean, the problem is that he's 2 strength, but you need that. But like, having agi access, because this player is gonna, I think, have a somewhat different role than what he would on humans. But passing is bad because you have a 3-up passing stat. So like, if you have to pass to get this into the end zone, you better have a reroll. And you really only get 2 on Old World Alliance. I don't think you can get to 3 and be okay. In terms of, and also this is a thing that I've thought about a lot in this edition with the throw teammate. I don't think this is a team where you can try to save your 2 rerolls and say that I'm going to kick off the ball every time, and I'm going to try to one turn with a halfling. I don't think you can do. I don't think that this is that team. Black Orcs are that team. This is not that team. So, which also brings me to the point of take the tree man over the ogre. The ogre's very expensive. Just take the tree, have this scary thing that throws 3-die blocks super easily on the line of scrimmage. If he takes root, okay, that sucks, and you're definitely slower if you use the tree man. But I don't actually think the ogre helps you. I mean, I think that the ogre it's a fine piece, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not a bad big guy, but
Yeah, I think
he's going to be just as slow as your dwarf line.
Yeah.
So just take the tree man. He's cheaper. You get more stuff. In fact, I probably need to do some math right now to see if you can actually even get the Slayer into this team without it being a major issue. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on Old World Alliance. Difficult to play, but when they work, it feels good. The problem is that you have to fight like hell to get there.
Entirely. And I guess with the tree man also, I mean, the movement that you get with the ogre is lost because your line is going to be slower than both human and dwarf lines in comparison. Because it's a much bigger risk to make blocks. So it's going to be your tree men blocking than your blitzers. And that's where your safe blocks end, right? There's nothing else to really do. So if you don't get a way to move your line with those positionals, you kind of have to wait till next turn.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at on that. And so it's like I would rather have the player that's. Let me see. I gotta get the skills up here for a second. Here. I just want to make sure that I'm. Yeah, because the tree man has strong arm, so he's better at throwing too. It's like I would rather just take the thing that lets me fish for POWs better, and just because that tree men are hard to deal with. So when you have a player on your team that with 1 assist throws 3 die blocks on any 3 strength player, like just fish for pals. Just use your mighty blow, fish for pals, and go ruin somebody. Like you're a tree. What are they gonna do?
Yeah, a lot less counterplay.
I don't know if that's true, but I also just did the math. Yeah, you can fit the Troll Slayer in here if you take, because I forgot to say that you have to. I think you have to take both dwarf blockers, both blitzers, the human thrower, human catcher. I think are what I would take every time. So that's 6 players. You take a tree man for your 7. You go 3 human linemen. You can fit in a Troll Slayer with with 2 rerolls, and then you have 30k left, which is exactly enough for the halfling. So if you want, you can take the Troll Slayer and have another block plate, another block piece. Which actually I might try that. The more I think about that, the better that sounds as a starting team than what I was doing, which is just maxing out fans. Which, by the way, has been super useful in Old World Alliance, at least for me, because I've had a bunch of players just die. So it's like, oh, I need to buy new players.
Yeah, I mean, rerolls are, especially for the Old World Alliance team, critical.
They're definitely a 3 reroll team, but you only get 2. But I think that they're absolutely a 3 reroll team.
Yeah.
And I might be wrong.
Okay, so with that out of the way, we're going to talk about my my next team that I've played a lot, which is my Washington.
You've played this team since they first released, I think.
Yeah, as soon as I got them, I wanted to play with them. It's my Snotling team, the Washington Snotling team. The only reason I bought them, to be honest, was because when they changed the Washington Redskin team to the Washington football team, I thought they were going to be awful, and I wanted a team to celebrate their awfulness, and so I grabbed me some Snotlings. And both teams didn't disappoint on how awful they can truly be. So initially, like, another reason why I wanted to grab them was because I thought they'd be hilarious. Little one strength guys, especially since my league that I play in involves a lot of new or people who are rookies in Blood Bowl. It'd be fun, they get to punch my dudes, and I get the challenge that comes with playing with like 16 small guys and the weird contraptions they bring with them. However, my playing experience has been a lot different than what I imagined. It has taken a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge, like rule retention and knowledge retention to play my Snotlings effectively, because I got to know what inducements I can get depending on how different or how big my difference in team value is, because you're almost always grabbing several inducements just by the petty cash made up, since you have low cost linemen, so they cost little, like next to nothing. I think with my Snotling team starting originally, it was like 680K, and that can afford you Boku. The only issue is that you're going to need to max out your bribes first, and then you're probably going to grab a wizard, and you're also wanting to grab anything else that may come to you. Star players I still have yet to really grab, but that all being said, it's a lot of setup for these guys. Considering swarming, considering my movement, like I'm usually moving like the max amount of players and then some on the pitch at all times, and that takes up time. That takes up a lot of time to move those people, especially if you're actually trying to score. It's really nuts. And the amount of time it takes, and the fact that I've actually, and this is not really a brag, but I've done pretty damn well with my Snotling team. My last match I had, bar the human team that destroyed me, was a Lizardman match, and I went 3-0.
No.
And
oh no.
And I have to say, neither of us were having fun. I mean, yeah, I was kind of, happy to see like the pinnacle of what Snotlings can do. But my opponent, and I'm sorry, Justin, if you're listening to this, he was pissed. He was absolutely bad. And I can't blame him, to be honest.
Proud of you.
Yeah. Because it took a forever and a day to move and take my turn. And I feel bad because it's not like I was stopping and thinking things through, really. It was just the amount of movement and keeping track of everybody. And of course, like with that many people on a board, you're knocking things over. You're forgetting where players are unless you move them specifically. And sometimes you forget which Snotling has what. And like when you start gathering like random SPP, it's a nightmare because there's like 4 to 5 Snotlings now that have skills, and I have to remember each one. So it is an incredibly difficult team, and I'm not talking about the strength or the fact that you're playing Snotlings anymore. It is the amount of knowledge you have to retain to make the game not last 5 hours.
This sounds amazing.
It is an incredibly involved process, and I recommend that. In fact, I want to play against you at some point, Eiley, with this team to show you the amount of time I have to take to crunch out to play this freaking team. Like I almost want to say that like maybe my undead will start becoming my casual team because I want a team I can just set up on the board and just go, because I can't do that with these Snotlings. It takes way too damn long. Now as to how I play them, I'm trying to kill harder than a Black Orc all the time. I am trying to eradicate the linemen. I am fouling almost every turn, and I am throwing bombs left and right. And to be honest, like even not even a wildly inaccurate, but you usually get an inaccurate throw. That's fine so long as you're not like throwing your Snotlings everywhere in between the guys. Just dodge out your Snotlings first and then chuck a bomb in there. I've only had like a catch maybe once or twice from the opposing team. And you can knock down, if not injure, a lot of people. You can match and exceed body counts with the amount of Mighty Blow and secret weapons that you can slap on that team. And I haven't even used like chainsaw players or other star players that have secret weapons, because I'm loaded with stuff that I can use.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2 pump wagons and 2 trolls sounds terrifying. Like, and you only really need 1 fungus flinger anyway, because you can only make 1 pass action a turn.
Exactly.
So it's like just go beat the ever loving crap out of your opponent.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You want, just like majorly like bashy teams, you want to keep it to 2 drives. because you can't just buy an infinite amount of bribes. You only get 2. So you have to play slow with snotlings. And if you have the opportunity, you need to stall with snotlings. And I don't find that I'm having an enjoyable experience or like a mutual experience with my opponent, because I'm just like, okay, I beat you with these little guys now. Now I'm just going to be a huge wiener and just sit there with the ball and not score. Because I can't. Because I need my pump wagons. Because my bribes have always failed, I need to save up on who gets ejected because I need my bombardier. And defensively, it can be even worse because now I'm using my snotlings as kind of like landmines to prevent you. Like, I need you to keep making rolls. I need you to keep making risks.
I need you to try to dodge through this.
Yeah, I need you to dodge through this because, I mean, with humans being more prevalent, it's only like a 3-up to dodge. But if I stack up my snotlings right, you're going to be taking a lot of dodges. And that's all I really need.
And the other thing is that you're titchy, so you don't actually enhance anything. So like two snotlings sharing a tackle zone, still only a 4-up if you're dodging into that.
Yeah.
Because titchy.
Exactly. So I protect my bombers, and then I've actually wanted to get more feedback on this because another issue I had with like snotlings, I know not a lot of people who bought snotlings and never used them because they were like, oh, this wacky zacky team, and they're experiencing the same thing I experienced. Holy crap. I need a spreadsheet and a checklist to play this team fast. And that is more than I am willing to invest, or at least for what they wanted to invest in that team. And I can't blame them. I want to check this again, but I am almost certain that snotlings are the highest count on eBay right now because a lot of people bought them, but no one used them.
So it's funny because two side tangents here. The first one is that I also have to explain to some people that I'm playing with why I'm stalling. Because it's like, because if I don't, I lose the game. And I don't even play secret weapon teams for the most part. It's like, I just lose. It is the most annoying. It's kind of annoying to explain because it's something that pisses a lot of people off. So it's one of those things of like, I'm not doing this to be an asshole. I'm doing this because we're in a league that you yourself said you are playing to win in.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's the level that you want to play at. Fine. But you got to be willing to take the hits there. And the second one is that, in terms of snotlings, when they first released, I didn't know people who bought them. I've never even seen snotlings in the tabletop. But I just knew a lot of people when they were announced that were just angry. Because it wasn't an established team. It wasn't, it was like, because this is Blood Bowl 2016. It's like Blood Bowl 2016 is still missing, Chaos Dwarves, which is a big deal. They're still missing, or they were at the time. Oh man, what were they missing at the time?
They're still missing. I mean, they're brought back elves for a little small thing. I don't think they're worth it. Just third party those elves, if I'm being completely honest.
Those are already gone at time of recording. Those were gone like day of, and when made to order is sold out. Like I was like, I'm not really surprised, but still, damn, I didn't know Blood Bowl would sell that fast.
Unless they since they're using these teams of legends, I've seen a lot of team of legends teams or players, and if we're gonna keep Khemri on the lineup, we gotta remake Khemri in some facet because Khemri models are at a premium, just like Bretonnians are, and they're harder to find each year. And the only thing I want to do is just keep recommending third-party outlets if there is some. I don't know if there is at the moment. I think I saw something from Grebo. I'm
on Grebo
similar.
right now because, and I'm sure our editor is going to hate me for this. I was typing up. Somebody asked in a Discord, what's like a Croxagore proxy, and I just pulled up Grebo while you were talking about snotlings.
There's actually an STL, and I'll have to ask one of my friends about it that he got for the Croxagore, specifically for that. But Yeah, that is another thing. Like, it was not a liked team when they first came out because we already had a bunch of lovable challenge teams already, and adding one that's even a larger challenge seemed redundant, if not kind of ridiculous.
It was the first new team added to Blood Bowl in how long though?
Yeah.
Like GW official. So like I'm not counting Demons of Korn, I'm not counting Bretonnians.
Yeah.
How long had it been since a new team? It was something crazy like 20 years. And I'm like, how are you people angry about this? Who cares if there's another stunty team? If it's not for you, whatever. People like playing against goblins, so who cares?
Exactly. And to go on your thing about stalling, I think stalling is a valid tactic. Stalling is fine. Even in like professional sports, some of the most recent like great plays in NFL in like the past like few years have been players that had the knowledge to run out the clock instead of scoring because they know the dangers that a reset can have on a game when you lose possession, because even though you're scoring, you're still losing possession. So the problem with me is that I'm taking all this time and now I'm also stalling. I am pouring salt into the wound, and it is a necessary strategic thing I have to do to win the game, and I don't like
secret
that.
weapon. Because like
Even
that's the other thing. Like you can score early and be like, okay, fine. Like I'll score early because I'll play this out. Like that's fine. But you have secret weapons, so you can't score early.
Exactly.
Because then you just handicap yourself for the rest of the game, and that's not fun either.
Originally, like I wanted to bring these guys to a tournament just to get some laughs. I don't think I'm getting laughs out of this team. I think I'm going to gather malice, because even if I'm playing like poorly or if I start losing early, the only time I'm having a fast match is if I'm actually losing really hard.
The dreaded, dreaded stunty team.
Exactly, and I don't want a bad experience, tournament friendly or otherwise, with my opponent. Like even if it's like a tourney, I still want it to have fun, because at the end of the day, this is still a game I picked up because I enjoy it.
And also, it takes several hours to play a match, and you don't want to be you don't want to be I forget who said it. I think it was the Glacial Geek. He was talking about, he's like, I love because he was talking about playing Gene Stealers in a GT, in a 40k GT, I think, in 8th edition, and he was like, I love my Gene Stealers, but the only way to win with this army in a tournament is to drown the board in bodies and take the match to time and eke out by like 2 points on objectives. And that's not fun at all for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. To end up on this, the team, I recommend keeping the stealthy runners. I don't like using the fun hoppers for ball carriers. The stealthy runners, in my opinion, are the best ball carriers because they have essentially 9 movement. And these are snotlings, so you take the risk unless, you have to stall. Which, to me, stalling is already a risk. And you have to give the stealthy runner the ball because he has 9 movement, and you're going to be using sprint if you want to score him. Just keep him in a safe place. He's really hard to nail down, just like all the other snotlings. And just spread the snotlings out. Keep the stealthy runner on the move. Keep him out of harm's way, and then score. You can throw teammates. You can do a 1-turn, but that is. I mean, it's funny. Yeah, it's fun, but you're going to be down a lot if you score early with this team.
Yeah, that's one of those things of like, if you think you're gonna have to do that, put a pump wagon on the sideline.
Yeah.
Question, because I know Bombardier, like Goblin players and Bombardiers. Do you play your Bombardier on offense because you're not using your pass action, you don't think? Or do you just prefer to be like, if I'm receiving this, or if I'm kicking off the ball, I'm putting this Bombardier in? Because a lot of Goblin players will say the Bombardier is a horrendous idea to use on your own drive.
I use the Bombardier first off and always. To me, since I get 2 Bombardiers, I only keep 1 on the pitch, and then I just use it because I need my kill potential. I need to be at high kill potential the entire time and keep maxing it out, because if I don't have player removal, I will eventually lose.
So, I gotta go digging in the book here. because I don't remember if this skill is still in here because we are recording this at like 11 p.m. my time. Excellent. Hail Mary pass is still a skill. Can you say bombs from across the pitch?
Yeah, you could say bombs, and I mean, it's Hail Mary's what's the scatter for a Hail Mary?
It's never accurate. Regardless of the result of the passing test, it will always be inaccurate at best. So really you're like,
so it's either a D8 at the best and a D8 plus 6 at the worst, unless you fumble it, of course.
It can be rerolled as normal. I need to see, what's the passing time of these guys? 3 up? If this works the way I remember it in Blood Bowl 2, that's just like a 2 up, that's just 2 up, artillery piece.
Yeah. But the thing is, for Snotlings, it's a 4 up. Now, granted, you can gather SPP pretty fast, but it's not really worth it.
Let me see real quick, because you're not looking for accurate. You're just looking for it to at least be inaccurate.
It needs to, it needs to just not be an at 1.
So it's just a 2. It's just a 2 up. Throw this bomb somewhere, which I really want to see you do now because it'd be really funny.
And if I still need to get clarification on these rules, but so long as the bombardier doesn't blow himself up, even an inaccurate pass or wildly inaccurate pass won't cause a turnover.
Yeah, no, that's not a turnover because it's not the ball.
Exactly. So again, you take
also
the
can't
risk.
blow up your own guys. If you hit one of your own guys, the bomb, that's a turnover.
It doesn't. Yeah, that's the thing. Even like you keep the bombardier to the end, you throw it, and if you hurt a Snotling in the process, if you can make at least a trade Snotling per the other person's positional, that's a game. Because I guarantee you'll still have more, even if you do a 1-to-1 removal with each one. So,
yes, the Snotlings of attrition.
Yeah. So, last but definitely, I gotta know about your Black Orc team.
Yeah, when the closed beta finally opened up, I instantly locked in Black Orcs, and because I was like, you know what, I want to play these guys. Let's see what's fun there. And oh my god, this is gonna be really fast because they're really easy. They hit like a truck, and because you're fishing with 2 dice constantly, you're actually more likely to get injuries because you're just rolling more armor. So you actually get SPP a little bit faster too. I mean, if you're lucky, you'll get like more SPP. So you can actually scale pretty quickly if you wanted to. You can take like random strength on your Black Orcs, or just go Mighty Blow first and go to town, which is what I would recommend, honestly. The goblins, I mean, I'll be honest, I never did anything with the goblins except throw them. Because you don't really need to do anything with them. Like, yeah, they pick up the ball. Okay, sure. Like you run it in, but that's not the this is very basic Blood Bowl. Just pick up the ball and run it forward while your Black Orcs maim everything. My favorite thing to do is to position, because you start with grab. So what you can do is, if you get a POW, you can force them like into your own line, and then force them into like, a +2 assist foul or something, and just get people off the pitch.
Yeah, and remind me, Black Orcs are a team where you can just take every positional. You can just take a full team.
Yeah, 6 Black Orcs, the Troll, and I think you can do... I don't remember if you can get a bench or not. I think you can get a bench if you don't start with the Apo, and like, why would you start with the Apo? You've got so much armor already. Oh no, one of your goblins dies. Who gives a shit? It's 45k. But yeah, just take your 6 Black Orcs, your Troll, however many goblins you want, and 2 rerolls and go nuts. But the other thing is that because you have Brawler, and this is the thing that I was doing to people in the beta, or at least I was trying to do, if I couldn't figure out how Throw Teammate worked, because Throw Teammate was a mess in that beta, I'll be honest.
That beta was a mess.
It wasn't clear how it worked at all. And it didn't really tell you how it worked. So, but the thing that you can do is, because you have Brawler, and you're fishing with 2 dice constantly, you're not going to be taking a lot of turnovers from what is it? You're not going to take a lot of turnovers from blocks. I mean, it's going to be a little bit harder to pick up the ball because it's a 3-up and you can still fail that. But you can afford to wait like a turn or 2 before something really starts to happen. I mean, if you don't pick up the ball till turn 3, you're kind of in a rough spot, but you can still do something about that. But the thing that I was doing most of the time was actually kicking off to my opponent, saving my rerolls for the first half as much as I could. If I can save those 2 rerolls, which yes, that takes a lot of luck, and yes, you're taking pushes when you really want, to fish for something, but it's whatever. Like, just take the push; it's safer. That's just good Blood Bowl in general. Like, don't get greedy with your rerolls. Seriously.
Especially now, since you can spend them all.
Right, and then you spend both your rerolls on a throw teammate play to tie up the game, and then you're receiving that half. Is what I was really trying to do to people, and I actually got to the last to turn to, like, they would score or whatever if they scored at all, and then I would get to that point with 2 rerolls. So it's like, it's not impossible. It's definitely, I mean, you're definitely going to have games where that doesn't happen at all. But I think I think it's a good goal to have while playing Black Orcs, is to say, if I can save my rerolls, I can tie this game up instantly with a throw teammate. And then I'm getting the ball again. I'm in a really good spot. And that was really my experience was really, like, that beta only had, like, 2 teams, and had 3 teams, 2 of which had AV8 up. Because it was Elven Union, Imperial Nobility, and Black Orcs. So it was like, oh, a lot of these guys are squishy. So that's also part of it. But like if you're playing against, like, squishy stuff, I would just, like, play aggressively. I mean, I would play aggressively anyway, but I mean, don't expect you're gonna get a whole lot done against, like, dwarves, for example. But it's like, if you're up against something that's AV7 and has average pass, or, like, average ball handling, and average ball handling in this edition is not good at all. If you've got if it's an AG3 team with, passing 3 up, I think you can just start murdering your opponent. I think you just gun for it. Was my experience, at least.
Yeah. Well, what'd you think of that beta? I wasn't able to play.
I'm of 2 minds. Part of me is saying that people forgot what a beta was like. The other part of this is that there was some mistakes and some problems that should not have been in that beta. The big one for me was that they did not use the official rules translations for non-English languages, which is, for a French company, that like I get it that your primary audience speaks English and English is the lingua franca of the world, but when your native language isn't English and you're not using the official rules translation in your native language, I have to start questioning what your development process was like. That seems like a really big oversight to me, and I'm not sure how that happened, because it was to the point where, like, there was some Spanish players talking about it once I saw, and they were like, all the skills are totally incomprehensible because these are not actually, like, grammatical translations. These are really, really bad translations of things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, it was sound. I had almost no issues, no crashes, anything like that. No, like, actual gameplay related. Okay, no, there were gameplay related bugs because it would randomly use your blitz, which was always really funny.
Wow, that's a big bug.
That is a big bug, and they fixed that. There was another bug where the player would take their move, and their player model. This was only client side to the actual, like, player that moved him. Luckily, they would slide back to where they were before, so it looked like they were standing in a different spot. But to your opponent, they were where they were supposed to be, at least, which is what's important. Mm-hmm. Throw teammate was incomprehensible. I spent, like, actually 5 minutes trying to make it work. I'm of 2 minds on the chess clock idea. I think I get what they're going for with that. Just bring back the, because what you have like something like 7 or 8 minutes or whatever, at least on the ladder. For the, no, what is it? It's 2 minutes plus an 8-minute bonus timer is what it is. It's like, I kind of get, like, what you're doing with this. Just up it to 4 minutes in the ladder so people can figure out how stuff works. Seriously, like give people 4 minutes and see how long it takes for people to take their turns. Because I consistently saw people spending 4 minutes on the first turn. trying to figure out how stuff works. It's like, just don't punish us for this. Come on.
Yeah.
But technically sound, the player models look fine for a Blood Bowl game. I'm not super sold on the new style yet, but we haven't seen everything in the new style, so that's kind of a moot point. But technically sound for the most part. No crashes, anything like that. It looks like it's going in a pretty decent direction. There are some concerns, but honestly, I think a lot of those are sensationalist. So I kind of just want to see what happens, and I hope that they add more teams to it, and then they let us add it again. But so far, this is definitely a game that had to be delayed to February 2022.
Not to strive too far off topic, but that sounds like the average Cyanide Games experience. Is that they have good direction, but the execution is everywhere, and they still need a lot of time. And I'm glad that they're willing to take a step back and saying that they need more development time, because it looked like it needed it. Though I do agree that I feel like with the age of like games going into early access for a small forever, it kind of fosters the assumption that a beta game is pretty much already done.
Yeah.
And I think Cyanide is a different opinion. Like, they do it like beta as an old school beta.
As in,
where
it's a beta test. We've been doing this for decades. This is what a beta test means. Get off my lawn. You damn new game devs.
But that's about as far as I'm willing to defend it, because I've played plenty of Cyanide games, and I know how they roll.
Only ever played Blood Bowl 2. And I love it for all of its silly graphical glitches and stupid stuff. At the end of the day, Blood Bowl 2 is what a Blood Bowl game needs to be, and I'm glad that they're taking the time to like flesh out some other stuff. But if I don't get the same functionality as Blood Bowl 2, and I get that Blood Bowl 2 right now is way down the line in development, where they have fixed a lot of bugs. Like, when I picked up Blood Bowl 2, and I remember this in a league, I was playing in a league in a skink, and players were making these ridiculous dodges with skinks because dodge wasn't proccing once per turn. So to fail a dodge, like a big string of like 4-ups or whatever, you had to fail the 4-up twice per dodge. So it'd be like, roll a 1, okay, reroll 4, cool, move up a space, dodge, roll a 2, cool, dodge procs, roll again. It was like, why is this, like, that's not how that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that being a big issue with some people who actually came into the league, the IRL league, up in where I live, because they assumed that some abilities procced more than once, and we had a discussion about it, simply because that's what they came to accept. So yeah, like Blood Bowl 2 has had a lot of time, but where Blood Bowl 2 is now, like, that's what a Blood Bowl game needs to be, bare minimum. If you're adding extra stuff, there is some like nervousness from people I've seen. I'm like, I think this is just people like being afraid of something new or something. I don't think they're going to tack on anything. I think the actual issue is simply there's a lot that was added to Blood Bowl, the game, and now Cyanide has to really compartmentalize themselves and see, like, what the heck are we actually going to add to this base game? Because now there is rules for a lot more things, and I don't think that they, even with the extended development time, they're going to have time for. We may see some of those features like balls and stadiums later on than what we expect.
I look forward to playing in a league where like the ball changes every couple drives, or like every drive, bringing actual life to the often repeated "new balls, please" joke.
All right, we're at the hour mark, so so I am ready to go into our closing. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank our editor Keyframe for his time and service, and we've just got a new artist here. Her name is Moop, and she won't be doing any of the pixel art that you've seen before. That is done by a troll in the back with a paintbrush and a graphics tool.
It's funny, it looks a lot like you.
He does look a lot like me. We're cousins.
I see.
But if you want to play some of the teams that we've been mentioning, you can join our Discord. We're doing a league right now that's about to finish up, and we'd love to see your wonderful mugs there on the BBSPN Discord. And since I have to still do this YouTube algorithm crap, like, comment, subscribe, like, comment. What else is there? What's a good meme?
Sub like fave cribe.
Yeah.
Lorette.
be a carbon based was that carbon based life form, not carbon cringe life form, and we'll see you guys later.
Well,